Friends, I'm Sunil sir and I'm back with a new video. Friends, in this video we are going to talk about breathing and exchange of gases, one of the most important chapter of human physiology. So we are going to just do a recap, you can say one short video for breathing and exchange of gases, where we will be discussing all the important points that normally comes in your NEET exam. Very first is process of exchange of oxygen from the atmosphere with carbon dioxide produced by the cell is called as what? So we all know that it is called as breathing, which is also known as respiration. There are different animals living in different habitat and they have a different respiratory organs. So let us understand. For poriferans, they respire through diffusion. Nidaria, they respire through diffusion. In Ctenophora, the respiratory organ is absent. For Platyhelminthes, they respire through diffusion. Aschelminthes respire through diffusion. Annelida, they have moist cuticle on their body. In arthropods, we have different categories like prawns respire through gills, crab respire through book gills, insects respire through trachea, scorpion respire through book lungs. Molluscans, they have feather-like gills. Echinodermata, they all have gills. Hemichordata, they respire through gills. Urochordata have pharyngeal gill slits. Cephalochordata, pharyngeal gill slits. Fishes, we all know respire through gills. Amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals, they all respire through their lungs. The next question that can come is common passage for food and air. So the answer is pharynx. It is the common opening for nose and mouth. Next we have cartilaginous box that helps in production of sound, and we all know it is called as larynx. Next we have opening of windpipe is called as glottis, and this glottis is guarded by a flap. The flap is called as epiglottis. Epiglottis helps in the opening and closing of the food pipe and the windpipe. Next we have opening of food pipe, which is called as gullet. Next, human respiratory system is composed of. So remember students, it is composed of nostril, pharynx, larynx, trachea and lungs. Most important. During swallowing, glottis can be covered by a cartilaginous flap, and that flap is called as epiglottis. Let's see how the respiratory system works with the help of flowchart. The air enters through nostril, goes in the pharynx. From pharynx it goes in the larynx, which is your sound box. Then it goes into the trachea. Trachea is made up of C-shaped cartilaginous ring having 16 to 20 rings present, which is lined by ciliated pseudo-stratified cuboidal epithelium, and it has mucus glands also. Then trachea divides into bronchioles. So we have primary bronchiole, secondary bronchiole, tertiary bronchiole. Tertiary bronchioles opens into initial bronchiole, then terminal bronchiole, and finally the air goes into the alveoli. And in the alveoli there are blood capillaries which helps in exchange of gases. Incomplete cartilaginous rings are supported by, so they are supported by initial bronchioles. Remember this. Lungs are covered by a double layered membrane, and that membrane is called as pleura membrane. There are two membranes, students, the outer membrane and the inner membrane. The outer membrane is called as parietal pleura membrane. The inner one is called as visceral pleura membrane. Between the parietal and the visceral pleura membrane, there is a space that is called as pleural space, which is filled by a fluid called as pleura fluid. And the role of the fluid is to give nourishment, avoid friction and protection to the lungs. Conducting part and respiratory part, two important parts. Conducting part includes external nostrils to terminal bronchiole, and respiratory part includes alveoli and their duct. Coming to this diagram, very important diagram, look at the labeling. This is epiglottis, the flap which controls the opening and closing of food pipe and windpipe. This is larynx, which is your sound box. The trachea, also known as windpipe, which divides into bronchus. Then it enters into the lungs through bronchioles. Then finally terminally there is alveoli. The covering of the lungs is pleura membrane, parietal and visceral. In between there is a fluid filled up called as pleura fluid. Lungs, these are the ribs, and finally we have a dome shaped structure called as diaphragm. Coming to the next important part, what is the basic difference between inspiration and expiration? As far as intrapulmonary pressure is concerned, during inspiration the intrapulmonary pressure decreases. In expiration the intrapulmonary pressure increases. With respect to diaphragm and intercostal muscles, remember students, at the time of inspiration it contracts and in the time of expiration it relaxes. Next question is, we have the ability to increase the strength of inspiration and expiration with the help of what? So we have abdominal muscles. The more strong is your abdominal muscle, the more will be the strength of inspiration and expiration. Average breathing rate of human is 12 to 16 times per minute. Volume of air involved in breathing movement can be estimated by. So there is a device which is used to measure the rate of respiration or the breathing that you normally do, and it is called as spirometer. Let's talk about the thoracic chambers, what it is made up of. So dorsally it is vertebral column, ventrally it is sternum. Laterally what is present, we say ribs, and lower side what is there, diaphragm. So the entire, because your lungs are like balloons, the more air you fill in, the balloon will expand. Expansion can lead to bursting of the balloon. Your lungs never burst out. Why? Reason is very much simple. It is protected or guarded by this thoracic cavity that we call it as rib cage. Now this is the diagram when there is inhalation taking place. So air enters into the lungs. So what happens when you breathe in? You can see my chest is raising up. So we can say the ribs and sternums are raised. So what happens to the volume? Definitely it increases, but the pressure decreases. The ribs, then the diaphragm contracts. Look at this. When we exhale out, during exhalation, when we exhale out, the pressure that was there on the ribs and the sternum is released, so it comes back to its normal position. Volume of thoracic region decreases and diaphragm relaxes and it again becomes dome shaped. Remember, during inspiration the diaphragm is flat due to pressure. During expiration it becomes dome shaped when the pressure is released. Let's understand the different volume of air. So inspired air during normal respiration is called as tidal volume, 500 ml. Like now I'm teaching to you, so I'm breathing normally. So at this point of time the amount of air that I'm taking in or giving out is 500 ml. Additional volume of air a person can inspire by forceful inspiration, means normal inspiration, but you take more than maximum that you can take in is called as IRV, inspiratory reserved volume, which is 2500 to 3000 ml. Additional volume of air a person can expire by a forceful expiration is ERV, expiratory reserved volume. It is 1000 to 1100 ml. Volume of air that remains in the lungs even after forceful expiration, means if I exhale maximum, still some amount of air remains in my lungs, so that is called as residual volume. It is 1100 to 1200 ml. Total volume of air a person can inspire after normal expiration is IC, inspiratory capacity. It is TV plus IRV. What is EC, expiratory capacity? It is total volume of air a person can expire after normal inspiration. Means normally you have inspired, but the amount of air that you can also take in, that is TV plus ERV, means normal breathing plus expiratory reserved volume. Then maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after forceful expiration, means I have exhaled all the air out from my lungs, the maximum that I can do. After that the amount of air that I take in is VC, vital capacity. It is nothing but TV plus IRV plus ERV. Total volume of air that accommodates in the lungs at the end of the forced inspiration is TLC, total lung capacity, which is VC plus RV. So there is something called as FRC, functional residual capacity. It is ERV plus RV. So how much it comes to? 1000 plus 1200, that is 2200 ml. So these are the volumes which you need to remember. Let's understand the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide in different parts. Remember students, the partial pressure is always measured in terms of mmHg. So gases, one side we have oxygen and one side we have carbon dioxide. In atmospheric air, the partial pressure of oxygen is 159, carbon dioxide is 0.3. In alveoli, after breathing in the air that goes in the alveoli, the partial pressure of oxygen is 104 mmHg. Carbon dioxide is 40 mmHg. Now the deoxygenated blood, the blood which has came through pulmonary artery into your lungs, that time the partial pressure of oxygen is 40. It is definitely less because it is carrying deoxygenated blood. And carbon dioxide is 45. So it has more of carbon dioxide. Now after there is exchange of gas, what happens? The blood become oxygenated. So the oxygen level in the blood will be 95 mmHg and carbon dioxide will be less, 40 mmHg. And when this oxygenated blood reaches to the tissues, so in tissues what happens? The oxygen concentration or partial pressure is 40 and carbon dioxide is 45. So you have to just remember one pattern you can see here. It is 40, 40, 40 and 40. So it's going in a zigzag manner that will help you to remember. Coming to the next part. Solubility of carbon dioxide is 20 to 25 times higher than that of oxygen. Diffusion membrane, most important point that is always asked in your NEET exam. So there are three major layers. First is squamous epithelium of alveoli. Second is endothelium of alveolar capillaries. Third, we have the basement membrane. So these all becomes the diffusion membrane. Remember, there are how many layers? Three major layers. Transport of gases, oxygen and CO2. Oxygen is always transported 97% through RBCs. One hemoglobin has a potential to carry 4 oxygen molecule and 3% oxygen is transported in the form of dissolved in plasma. Carbon dioxide transport, 70% is transported through bicarbonate ions. 23% is in the form of carb amino hemoglobin, means the carbon dioxide combines with the hemoglobin, and 7% is dissolved in the plasma in the form of carbonic acid. It gets transported. Look at these layers. Now you can understand the alveolar cavity, the blood capillaries and the basement layer. This graph that you can see, it is oxygen dissociation curve. So partial pressure of oxygen and the percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen. So what curve we get? We get something S-shaped curve. The curve shifts to right or shifts to left. Depending on that, we have two phenomena, which is called as Bohr's effect and Hamburger phenomena, also known as chloride shift. But it is not included in our NEET portion, so we will not discuss that. Factors affecting oxygen dissociation curve. Let us take if the, let's say, favorable for oxyhemoglobin or unfavorable for oxyhemoglobin. So I have made it very easy for you to understand via table. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide. If it is low, then oxyhemoglobin will be formed. If it is high, oxyhemoglobin will not be formed. Partial pressure of oxygen. If it is high, formation takes place. If it is low, no formation. H plus ion. If there is less H plus ion in the blood, then it is favorable for oxyhemoglobin. If there is high H plus ion, then it is unfavorable for oxyhemoglobin. Same thing with the temperature. And low temperature, it is favorable for oxyhemoglobin. More of respiration takes place. In case of high temperature, it is unfavorable for oxyhemoglobin formation. Let us clear some confusion with respect to hemoglobin. Hb plus O2 is oxyhemoglobin. Hb plus CO is carboxyhemoglobin, which leads to carbon monoxide poisoning. And Hb plus CO2 is carb amino hemoglobin. Let's solve some confusion with respect to hemoglobin, blood and oxygen. Average hemoglobin in 100 ml of blood is how much, bachcha log? 12 to 16 gram. 1 gram of hemoglobin molecule carries 4 oxygen molecule. 1 gram of hemoglobin can carry 1.34 ml of oxygen. And 100 grams of blood will carry 1.34 into 12 or 16, approximately 20.1 ml of oxygen. Very important concept for your NEET exam. Remember, every 100 ml of blood, oxygen delivers 5 ml of oxygen to tissues. And every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers 4 ml of carbon dioxide to alveoli. Very important. Oxygen 5 ml and carbon dioxide 4 ml. Take a look at this diagram. It's very important. See, this is inspired air, expired air. So when you breathe in, that time the partial pressure of oxygen 104 mmHg, partial pressure of carbon dioxide 40 mmHg. And in case of deoxygenated blood that is coming here, partial pressure of oxygen will be 40 mmHg, means more in the alveoli, less in the deoxygenated blood. That's why oxygen from the alveoli enters in the blood. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45 mmHg, which is more in deoxygenated blood and it is less in the alveoli. That's why the carbon dioxide from the deoxygenated blood diffuses into the alveoli and then it is thrown out through the nose. Look at this: systemic arteries, partial pressure of oxygen 95 mmHg and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 mmHg. This is how the exchange of gases takes place. Remember the values, very important for your NEET exam. Confusion with respect to regulation of respiration. Now I will solve this problem very easily for you. What are the various respiratory rhythmic center? We have medulla oblongata. So it is present in the medullary region of the brain. Primarily responsible for respiratory regulation. That is respiratory rhythm center. When we talk about pneumotaxic center, where it is present in the pons varolii region of the brain. Remember, P for pneumotaxic and P for pons. So both starts with P. They can moderate the function of respiratory rhythm center. So medulla oblongata is responsible for respiratory regulation. Pons varolii, it can moderate or it can little bit fluctuate the respiratory rhythm center. We have the chemosensitive area. Sometimes what happens, the pH level of the blood increases or decreases, hydrogen ion increases or decreases in the blood, and that time this area plays an important role. Where it is situated? Adjacent to rhythmic center, highly sensitive to carbon dioxide and H plus ion. This center sends signals to rhythmic center. Now rhythmic center is pneumotaxic area on increase of carbon dioxide and H plus ion. So whenever carbon dioxide concentration increases or H plus ion concentration increases, then these centers get activated. There are few receptors on aortic arch and the carotid artery which arises from the heart. It can recognize the change in carbon dioxide and H plus ion concentration, send signals to the rhythmic center, and then the concentration is regulated. Remember, role of oxygen is quite insignificant in regulation. I repeat again my sentence. Role of oxygen is quite insignificant in regulation. Let's see the disorders of respiratory system. First disorder is asthma. So in asthma there is a difficulty in breathing. It gives out a wheezing sound. The sound like so the person is not able to exhale out. He is able to inhale, but due to accumulation of more of mucus, he is not able to exhale out. So there is inflammation of bronchi and the bronchioles. Let's talk about emphysema, chronic disorder. Alveolar wall gets damaged, which reduces the surface area. Major cause of emphysema is cigarette smoking. Then we have some occupational related disorder, occupational lung disorder. It is seen in the workers, who works in the industries like stone mining or dust industry, where they work throughout the day and they keep on consuming more of the fumes, particles, and they suffer from this. Long exposure to dust causes inflammation leading to fibrosis. Fibroids develop in the lungs. Fibrosis is proliferation of fibrous tissue. So these are all the disorders related to respiratory system. Now my dear students, I have gave you a gist and an outline of the chapter human respiratory or human respiration, breathing and exchange of gases. I will be posting few MCQs line to line NCRT of this particular chapter on my Telegram. So what you need to do, you have to go through this entire video very nicely, and then at the end you have to go on my Telegram channel, solve those MCQs so that it becomes very easy for you to solve any question that comes from this chapter. If you want any chapter ka one shot video in English or in Hindi, don't forget to put it in the comment section. I will definitely help you out. This is your Sunil sir saying goodbye to you. Thank you very much. Stay focused, stay safe, and study every day. Thank you.